Thank you all so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to see you all here as we come together to tackle a very pressing issue in a digital age, online scams. They're all getting really sneaky these days. I am your mayor, James Coleman, and I'm joined here by CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. We're partnering to help us all learn how to protect ourselves from fraud, keep dollars in our pockets, and keep all of our communities safe. When it comes to scams, everyone's susceptible. Everyone likes to think that it's just seniors, but honestly, all throughout our community, there have been times where I almost got scammed myself. I see a lot of my friends in my age group almost getting scammed. One time my mother pulled me when I was in the middle of work, and she said, I just got this call from someone who said that I was going to go to jail if I didn't pay them $2,000. And of course she went to me because I work in government, and I told her, you're not going to jail, right? It's a complete scam. It'd be more serious than that. So I'd say that to say that there are no matter your age, right? No matter if you're in your 20s or if you're a senior, so many people are susceptible to it. These scams are getting sneaky. They're getting aggressive. They're getting bold. And I have some few stats to illustrate how important today's topic is. In 2023, the IC3 received a record number of complaints from the American public, over 880,000 complaints with potential losses exceeding $12.5 billion in this country. Tech support scams were the most widely reported kind of elder fraud in 2023, and nationally and locally, victims ages 30 to 49 years old were the most likely group to report losses from investment fraud, if you see all those cryptocurrency scams nowadays in Twitter and all that. As technology continues to evolve, so do the tactics of those who aim to exploit our communities. So our aim today is to equip everyone with practical knowledge and tools to safeguard yourself, your families, and your community from these deceptive schemes. In our increasingly digital world, being informed is our strongest defense. And the insights that you'll gain today are vital for protecting your personal information and ensuring a safer online experience for everyone. So thank you so much for your commitment to this important topic. Let's get started to learn how we can stay one step ahead of our online scammers. But before that, a few housekeeping measures. Please make sure you grab some pizza. We support local businesses here, Costco. And the bathrooms are back there. So if you need to use restrooms, they're right back there. And so without further ado, please join me in welcoming Donald Hester as our guest from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency.
Thank you, Mayor, for that introduction and those very poignant words that are really important today in our, how should we say, digital age, right? It's a funny thing when you grow up, and I remember hearing stories about my grandfather, and he would talk about, riding a horse to school, because that was the main mode of transportation the family had. He lived on a farm, and he'd ride the horse to school in Flint, Michigan. And one of his first jobs was sweeping the dirt floor of a auto mechanics shop who worked on Model T Fords, right? So that was just my grandfather, right? So throughout his life, it's really interesting when you think about it. He went from that to helping, because he became an engineer, he helped design parts of the Saturn rocket that got us to the moon, right? So in his lifetime, he went from Model T Fords to the moon. And then I remember one time when I was at college and I came home and I showed him my laptop and he's looking at it and he's like, where do you put the punch cards? And I'm like, Pops, we don't use those anymore. And that's the truth with technology, right? Throughout history, from the time that the Romans did aqueducts and they did streets, the technology for streets hasn't changed that much since then. But the technology we use that run almost every aspect of our lives has greatly changed. And technology has become so important to almost everything that we do. In fact, some folks think about it, I think of it this way, and this is maybe the bad way to think about it, but Have you ever cooked a lobster? You know, you put it in the water and then you slowly boil it, right? And then over time, it just gets faster. And the lobster doesn't know he's getting boiled, right? That happened to us. Over time, technology has grown so fast and we haven't kept up with it. And then the risks related to that technology have also, because I hate to say it, but criminals, especially cyber criminals, are very innovative. Right? And they figure out new ways of doing the same old type of scams, but using technology to do those. And that puts us as, citizens of the United States, it puts us at risk. And so my personal goal in life, or my purpose statement or whatever, you go to one of those classes, they say you got to come up with your purpose statement. Mine is to make the world cyber safe. And I've been working that for 30 years. So prior to even coming to CISA, I worked as an IT auditor. I worked for a financial company that did audits, mostly for local government. So Tony's known me for a very long time. I was their auditor at one point in time. And after that, I went and worked for local government. I worked for the city of Livermore. I became their cybersecurity manager to help them become cyber safe. And then when this job came along, I'm like, look, I can help the whole world. Well, I can help all of the critical infrastructure for partners in the United States. So I figured, well, this is a bigger scope. So that's why I kind of moved over here to CISA. And so for those of you that don't know what CISA is, it's the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. We're a part of the Department of Homeland Security. Our role is to be the nation's risk advisors. And what does that mean? Our role is to help make sure that the folks that are using systems know what the risks are so that they can protect themselves from that. How would you feel if you went to the ATM, you put your card in, and it says you have a zero balance? That would not be good. That would not be good for our economy, and that would not be good for you personally, right? So how do we make sure that doesn't happen? So how can we work together for that? And that's one of the critical things that we have at CISA is we understand that this is not a problem that the federal government can solve by itself. We understand this is not a problem that local government can solve by their self. We understand that you as an individual cannot solve the problem by yourself. And we understand that private industry, the tech companies, can't do it themselves either. We understand it's a combined effort. We have to collaborate together to thwart this. And so one of our big things at CISA is collaboration. And that's what my job is, and I love my job because I get to go collaborate. I get to go work with the cities, I get to go work with the counties, I get to go work with the tech companies, I get to go work with the banks and the credit unions to help them understand what their risks are so that they know what they can do to mitigate those things and prevent that bad stuff from happening, right? And that's basically what we want to do. That's part of what CISA's role is. Primarily, our audience is critical infrastructure partners. So who are those? Well, we have 16 different sectors that the United States has defined as critical infrastructure. In other words, they're important, and that if they were gone, there's going to be some serious consequences to the United States and our economy. So think of it. Let's look at the one at the bottom, water. Is that important to you? You turn that faucet on, you want water to come out, right? And you don't want polluted water, in our systems, right? So that obviously is really important. And yet, not very long ago, a disgruntled employee or a disgruntled applicant who did not get a job at a water district said, I'm going to show those people, hacked into the system, and then released raw sewage into the river. Using technology, it became an environmental disaster. And it was done because somebody was upset because they didn't get a job that they thought they should have got, right? So it's important for us and make sure that the water districts understand what that risk is so that they can protect themselves from it. That's just one example. You can look at everything, emergency services, right? You go to the hospital, you want to make sure that they have access to your medical records, right? What if they don't have it and you're allergic to something? And the record's there, they just can't get access to it because it's electronic. That might not be good, right? So we want to do that. Energy, dams, critical manufacturing, commercial facilities, food and agriculture. We got to eat, right? So there's a lot of stuff, transportation and all that stuff. So one of the things that we want to make sure is that they understand, all these sectors understand what the risks are, and that they can start addressing those things. And that helps protect your livelihood and your ability to go to the store, get food, have water when you come on, go to the bank and get money out of the bank, right? So that's what we're working tirelessly to do, right? That's what my whole job is, to make sure that you have what you need. And that goes across all the way from the local government all the way up to the federal level and to our partners. We call them stakeholders. All the other critical infrastructure, like the energy company and all that other stuff that's privately owned, but still is part of critical infrastructure. And so, some interesting statistics. If you look at the largest economies in the world, what do you think is the largest economy in the world? The US, right? You know who's number 2? China. You guys are really good. Who is number 3? Or what would be number 3? Cybercrime. Cybercrime would be the 3rd largest economy in the world. We're talking trillions of dollars, right? This is a huge problem. This is why we need to deal with it, right? It's something we need to deal with. And you think about this. I talked about my grandfather going to school on a horse, and there was no such thing as the internet back there. There was no such thing as computers, not like we envision computers today, right? But 63% of the world's population is now on the internet. So that's huge. I think that's talking about all the other, there's that island in the middle of the Indian Ocean that they don't want to talk to anybody and nobody's allowed to go there. They're not on the internet, so that's part of the people not. But everybody else, 63% of everybody is on the internet. That means there's a lot of people connected and a lot of potential victims. So if you're a cyber criminal and all those people are accessing their bank from their cell phones or from their computers, that's a rich target. There's a lot of targets everywhere, right? So who are the bad guys, right? This becomes one of the issues that kind of pops up from time to time, is like, well, is it all just cyber criminals, or is it, how many of you saw War Games back in the 80s, right? Some kid in the basement just, playing a game. That is not what we're dealing with today. We deal with cyber criminals, it's like organized crime. Right? And oftentimes it is associated with other forms of organized crime. So that's one group of them. What do you think their motivation is? They want to get money, right? They want to attack. They want to get people to, they either want to extort you to get money from you, or they want to trick you into transferring money over to them through some deceptive means. So that's the cyber criminals. They're motivated primarily by money. Right? That's what their goal is. They're just trying to get rich, just like, organized crime. What do you think nation states, what do you think their goal is? Yes, some type of power, right? To disrupt the United States economy, to give their economy an advantage, or to disrupt our nation, or if you are really interested and you're bored at night and you want to fall asleep, you can listen to some of the congressional testimony. But there's a really good one that I do recommend that you listen to if you get a chance to it. My Director Easley of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and the Director of the FBI testified in front of Congress about the threat that China poses to the United States on this issue, right? This is a threat that is important. And if they're going to be reporting this to Congress, this is a big deal, right? So this is something that we all have to pay attention to. Those nation states have the ability to impact us greatly. And some of those nation states are bent on just destruction, not about economic espionage or about gaining market share or getting their economy larger than ours. Some of them just want us gone, right? So depending upon who the nation state is, depends upon sometimes what their motivation is, and depends upon what type of attack they make, but also their abilities and their strengths. They have an army corps of hackers. Not hundreds, thousands, right? I don't know what the right number is, but there's lots of them, right? So there is a concerted effort by those nation states. They have groups specialized in this, and they're waging, war against us, cyber war against us, right? And that's happening. What about hacktivists? They have a political statement, and they want to hack into something and try to make a political statement. Now, I'm all for political statements. Freedom of speech is important. That's what the hallmarks of the United States. But when someone hacks into a system that is critical for infrastructure, or critical for emergency services, that brings it into a life safety issue, right? And just like if someone was in here and they said fire and asking everybody to, getting everybody crazy to leave, that's not something that's protected speech, right? Because that can hurt people. Well, sometimes when people hack into systems, let's say you're on a train and you're having a heart attack. Someone hacked into the system, and so the communication system for the train is not working. You're not going to get the emergency services you need because somebody was hacking it trying to make a political statement, right? So there's real world consequences to some of this action. And so there's a level of responsibility that people have to have, but hacktivists, some of them are very, regardless of what they're trying to say, some of them can do damage, real damage and damage to people, and it can be a life safety. Insiders is another one. It's just sometimes, if you have a business, you can have somebody like the person I gave you an example of who didn't get the job and then decide, well, I'm going to attack you and then do a cyber attack and then make you guys look bad, right? So that's another threat as a potential. So these are a lot of the different bad guys. They have a lot of the different motivations for that. And you may say, well, why would any one of those people want to attack me? Well, the cyber criminals, a lot of them, it doesn't take very much activity for them to launch an attack against you, right? They send an email out to every phone number that they have. They send it out to every email they have. They just want to see if any one of you will try to click, and they will try and get whatever money that they can or from you. Did anyone ever see, there's a new movie that just came out called The Beekeeper? Anyone see that? It's an action movie, but the premise of the story was these hackers were breaking in, and this lady, she had just retired, and the hackers got her to worry about, her computer being broke. So they got into her computer and they transferred all the money out of all of her retirement accounts. And then by doing that, right, then she was despondent, and the story goes on that she commits suicide, and then the guy that was there, he's going out to get revenge. So that's where the action movie comes in. That's not reality, right? There's not going to be anybody, no action heroes trying to go after that. But we do try to go after those cyber criminals. And sometimes you don't hear it in the news, but the FBI does make arrests. They work with our international partners, and even if they're outside the countries, we're making arrests and convicting a lot of those hackers. Now, we're not getting all of them, but it's not all bad news, right? We're making progress, and it's getting better. Still a lot of ways to go. There's still a lot of bad guys out there. There are all kinds of, every type of scam you can think of can come across via email. So how many of you have email? Everybody has email, right? When I got into this industry, one of my first audits, I went to a city and I was going to do the audit, and I asked for their email, and they said, well, it's city of blah, blah, blah at AOL.com. And I'm like, well, what is your email address? Well, what do you mean my email address? We all use the same email. They were using it like it was a fax machine, you know what I mean? I mean, this wasn't that long ago, right? And this is another example of just how technology changes so much in our lives. Email is something that, when I grew up, we didn't have that. We had to write letters, And nowadays, nobody communicates with letters anymore. I don't think do stationery stores still exist? I mean, everybody, so that's part of it. So, like my kids, I will never get a card from them, not a real card. I get electronic cards, and emails and stuff like that. So that's just the way things have moved on. So anything that you can think of, whether it's extortion, whether it's, extortion is kind of like an interesting one, because that one they have a wide variety of different types of scams on that. And I do recommend, if any of you have questions about particular ones and because there's always new scams coming out, the FBI's website has little alerts and advisories about the different types of scams, and you can just sign up for their alerts, and it'll be another email you get. But I saw a cartoon the other day. It was really funny because it was like, it said back in 2000, this guy gets an email and he's all excited, I got an email. And now this guy comes back and it says his inbox has got 500 emails. I got another email. So things have changed a lot. not to add another email to your list, but it's a good one to get signed up for some of those services like the FBI. You can get their alerts. They will tell you about fraud that's going on so that you know what the fraud is. They'll tell you how the bad guys are executing it and what to watch out for. The best thing that you can do is protect yourself by knowing what they're going to do, right? And then just being really skeptical about anyone calling you, right? Yes? FBI.gov. Yeah, you just go to the FBI's website, and if you search there, there's on there. Also, I believe if you go to AARP, their website, they have a cyber section there that has a bunch of the same types of stuff. And the Federal Trade Commission, FTC.gov, also has a number of resources on there for you. So we got all kinds of stuff that comes by email. And how many of you have heard the word phishing? It's a new term, right? And it's phishing. I mean, what it means is it's just like fishing, right? You put the bait on the hook and you throw it out there and you try to reel it in to see if somebody bites, right? And that's where the term comes from. Why we say PH instead of F, maybe it's just to make it so it's different, but that's what it is. The idea is they're going to use some type of means to try and lure you in so they can take advantage of you. And so that's what you got to be careful about. You got to be skeptical about it. And there's different types of ways. They can do it via email. They can do it via SMS. They can do it via a text message. They can do it via social media posts. You know, on Facebook, they'll even do that kind of stuff. How many of you have had a friend that's a friend of yours in Facebook, and all of a sudden, you get another friend request from them? And you're like, what the heck is that? This is another scammer who sets up the account. They just go and steal the picture from your friend's webpage, put it on a new account with a name that looks like theirs. It's always usually misspelled somehow. And then they go to that person's friend list and try to refriend everybody. And then if you do, you might get a message from them saying, hey, I need help. I'm in jail. Can you come bail me out? Or send me some money via Western Union. If anybody asks you for money via Western Union, just say no. That's an easy way to just save it, right? So things you got to watch out for. So any type of email you get an email link on it. You got to be careful. You got to understand what that link is saying, and just be careful about what you click on, right? If you don't know and you don't trust it, the best thing to do is not click on the link, even if it says it's from your bank. Don't click on the link in there. Go to your web browser, open up the bank's website directly, and then log in there. Don't use the link that was sent to you in the email. Don't use the phone number that's in the email, because if the email's lying to you, guess what? That's all lies, right? I had, one example was, a business owner got an email and it said it was from the FBI. And it said, we believe that your organization, your computer has been, as a part of an investigation, we believe that you're involved in a cybercrime. However, we do not believe that you are doing it, but we would like to clear your name. So we would like you to call us up at this phone number or click this link, and we'll log into your computer, verify that you aren't a bad guy, and then we'll clear your name. Otherwise, we're just going to come down to your office. Right? Okay, first of all, we all laugh about it, right? Because you're like, that's just silly. I wouldn't fall for that. Well, the thing is, your brain doesn't work that way. Your brain does, as soon as you see the FBI, you're like, fear. Like, why is law enforcement after me, right? The first thing is fear. And then because it's fear, you don't think the same way you would when I'm telling you a funny story about it, right? You say, oh my gosh, I have to react to it. I have to do something really quickly, and that's how they get you. So anytime something seems really urgent, it's probably not, and that's a red flag. If it's urgent, it's a red flag. Doesn't mean it's not true, right? But it's probably not true. So if somebody calls you and says, and by the way, that's not how the FBI works. They don't say, hey, we think you're innocent. We'd like to help you prove it. It's not how they work. They come in with a subpoena and they say, we're taking stuff, right? So it's a completely different thing. So you have to understand that. And also, the IRS is not going to call you and tell you you owe them something. That if you don't pay it right away with a gift card from Walmart or a Western Union thing, that they're going to come and take you away with have the local law enforcement take you away. First of all, that's a lie. Don't even ever listen to that. The IRS is going to kill you with letters. You're just going to get thousands of letters, and then they'll garnish your wages. They're not going to come and take stuff away from you, right? They're not going to call local law enforcement on you. By the way, they have their own agents that have guns, and if they were showing up, that's how they would do it. But so you don't have to worry about that. But that's the thing. Some people get that and they get afraid because something like this happens. They're like, oh my gosh, I got this email. They know my name. Well, everybody else that has your email also knows your name, right? Because your name is usually associated with it. And you hear all the breaches that happen all the time. So your name and email address is probably all over what we call the dark web, where all the shady stuff happens. And my stuff's all over there. I have dark web monitoring, and all my stuff is, I can't do anything about the breaches, things like Equifax and stuff like that. My information was released, right? And so it's out there. So I have to be extra careful. So just because they know something about me doesn't necessarily mean that they know me. So we want to watch out that. There's different types of phishing, and we have different names for them. Like smishing is like, SMS texting or text messaging. It's just phishing that way to make it harder. Whaling is going after the big fish. I know whales aren't fish, but anyways. So I don't make these words, but I'm just telling you what they are. So it's going after the big fish, right? That's like targeting the CEO or targeting the mayor or targeting the city manager, right? They're going after the big fish, right? Because they're usually somebody that can make a decision, right? So they go after that. Spear phishing is just targeted. Phishing is like, I don't know who I'm sending the email to. I don't know who you are. I don't know anything about you. I'm just going to send an email and tell you have to log into your bank. Or I'm going to tell you that you have an Amazon package and it can't be delivered because I need you to sign on to do something. That's not how they do it. They leave a little sticky note on your door and then your package never shows up, right? They don't call you and say, oh, by the way. No. So anyways, so you have to be careful about those types of things. You have to think through it. So but spear phishing is they know your name, they know your email address, and they're going to tell something specific to you. They could have got that off the dark web, they could have got it from a breach, they could have got it off your Facebook page, right? You don't know where it is. So sometimes you have to be a little bit careful about what you post online. You've heard some people say don't post that you're on vacation when you're on vacation, because then people know that you're away from the house, right? So think about that, and you think, well, I've turned off my Facebook, so only my friends can see what I do. Yeah, but how well do you know all your friends? I'm just saying, I have a lot of friends on my Facebook. I don't know how I got so many, but I got like 1,000 or something friends, and I'm like, do I even know all these people? Anyways, phishing is just voice phishing, so they call you on the phone, leave a message, I'm with the IRS, and you got to call me back and all that stuff. If you ever are bored again, go onto YouTube, and you can look at people who are recording these calls, and you can hear examples of it. So there's one that I thought was the funniest one in the world. The person calls and says, I'm with the IRS, and we're going to send local law enforcement to you if you don't pay right away. And he's like, go ahead. Well, we're going to do it. He's like, go ahead, because you know who you're going to call? Me. I'm the police chief. Chief of police. So I was like, oh, that's a good one. So they don't know who they're calling again, right? And of course, they're calling the wrong person to that. So what do you do if something happens to you? You want to report it. As the mayor gave us those statistics earlier, the FBI collects all that information. There's a couple places that you can do it. The Federal Trade Commission, you can make a claim you can claim against anything. I mean, it doesn't have to be just a criminal. You can have someone where you ordered something online and they just never shipped it. Even if they're a legitimate business, you can file a complaint there, the Consumer Complaint Report. So you can file a complaint there. You can also file it, if you lose any money, definitely file it with the FBI, because they want to track how much money, how do we know that it's the third largest economy? Well, that's one of the ways, right? How much money does it end up costing us? So you definitely want to do it. We say, hey, change your passwords all the time. And how long of a password do you think that we recommend that you should have? 16, right? Here's the deal. A long time ago, 8 was great. It's not anymore. Sorry. So we understand that you're not going to remember. And you know what else I'm going to tell you? I'm going to say you have a different password for every website you go to. And don't use your grandkids' names or your dog's name or your cat's name or your favorite food or any of that kind of stuff. Because if they can start guessing it, they're going to try and guess everything. So we want you to kind of have somewhat of a somewhat complex of a password. But when you're saying 16 characters, it's really hard. So sometimes it's easier if you make a phrase out of it. And what's the tale of two cities? It's the best of times, it's the worst of times. That's a phrase, it's a whole sentence. Something's easy to remember, right? If that was your favorite book, then you could just use that as your password. But I'm going to tell you, you should have a different password for every website and account you have. So how many accounts do you think that you have? 22. You have an exact number. I like that. I think she pays attention. Are you an accountant? Oh, you made it up. Okay. So I did some research because I wanted to know how many that was, because I looked up how many I had, and I have 175 different passwords for my personal stuff. That's not work-related stuff. This is my personal stuff. Some of it doesn't matter, like a link to Newsweek magazine or something like that, and you sign up for a subscription, so there's a password for it. Well, all they're going to get is access to my subscription, not my personal information, not the end of the world. But my bank account, right? I don't want them to have access to that, or my retirement accounts, or any of that kind of stuff, right? So on all those other accounts, maybe you can have less of a password, maybe make that a little bit easier on yourself, but on the ones that are important, like your bank accounts, every one of them, I would definitely want to have at least 16 characters if I'm going to do that. Now, I can make your life a lot easier. Would you like me to make your life a lot easier? There's this thing called multi-factor authentication. If you do that, then the password doesn't have to be that long and complex. So I know it's a pain. You have to get a text from your phone. You have to type it in. That's a lot better than not having a long password, right? So that goes a long way in preventing. It makes it harder for them. It's not a silver bullet. Doesn't solve all the problems, but it gets you there a lot quicker. So definitely suggest that you have long passwords. So what can you do about long passwords? You can get a password management software. You can put it. I have one that's on my phone. It's also on my workstation at home. I call it a workstation, computer. You can tell I'm in IT, right? So no, it goes into my browser, and I just click on it, and it auto-filled my password. I don't even know what half my passwords are. They're 20 characters long, all gibberish. If you asked me to log into something without it, I'd be like, I'm not going to be able to log into that. I'm going to have to reset the password and go through the whole process. But the password management does it, and it stores it up in the cloud. Nobody else, and here's the other thing, I can't lose that password, otherwise I can't get into any of it. So I have to make sure that I don't lose that password to get into it. And make sure I have multi-factor authentication set up for that, so that people don't break into there and get all my passwords, right? So I know it's a lot of work. Yeah. Oh, so that's a loaded question. So sometimes and sometimes not. It depends upon the browser that you're using and the plugin that you're using and how secure it is. Yeah, so I'd want to make sure that you would go to, check out some different websites and see what the rating is for that particular password management tool. If it's just in the browser like Chrome and Microsoft Edge or Safari or whatever that you're using, those are okay. They're kind of mid-range. They're better than nothing. And then there's other ones that you can pay for that are best of class type of ones. And I work for the federal government, so I cannot recommend one over the other. Check them out. You can look up consumer reports and see what password managers have got that have. You want one that's going to follow you, right? So if you're going to log into your bank on your phone and you're going to look onto your computer at home and your maybe tablet, you would want to make sure the password follows you all around. The one that I use follows me wherever I go because it's in the cloud, really, and there's an app on each one of those devices that will log me into whatever I want to log into. I know it sounds complicated, but that's the easiest way to do it. I would recommend that. How many of you have heard about ransomware? Yeah. So where they log into your computers, they encrypt them so you don't have access to them, and then they demand that you make a payment. Otherwise, you lose all your data. So this is a big thing. You probably heard in the news, lots of different organizations being hit with ransomware, from medical organizations. Imagine if you're at the hospital, We've had hospitals where they've shut down and canceled surgeries because they've been hit with ransomware. Again, there's a life safety impact to something happening in cyber, right? This is a big deal. Now, you may think, well, they're not going to do it to me. No, they'll do it to you. They're not going to ask for millions of dollars because they know you're not going to have it. They're going to ask for thousands of dollars. Sometimes those folks, those cyber criminals, are not part of the gangs. They're just lower level, independent cyber criminals and stuff like that, but they still do it. You will still get ransomware from them. You may even get extortion from them. They may say, I've gotten this same one. I should keep all these examples, so I just make slides of examples. But there was one that I've seen multiple times, and it's like, we know that you have inappropriate images on your computer, and we're going to post them all over your Facebook page unless you pay us $500. How many people get scared and think, well, $500, that's a cheap price to not have to deal with that? Well, one, they don't have it. They're just bluffing. And two, if they did have it and you paid them $500, they're going to be, oh, there's a sucker. I'm going to do it again tomorrow. And again tomorrow. Right? How are you ever going to escape? They're just going to keep on coming back. That's how all extortion works. Never pay extortion, because they're going to come back and ask for more later when they spent that $500. So you want to watch out for that. So ransomware, the best thing that we can do to kind of prevent that is make sure we have backups of our data, right? And so sometimes as a home user, we don't think about backups. Putting it up in the cloud somehow, or doing a backup onto a little hard drive and saving that unplugging it from the computer, putting it somewhere else, every once in a while doing a backup. Think about all those family photos you have, right? And if you lost them, what would you do? Now, if you have them all on iCloud, that might be a different thing, but if you don't have it all up in iCloud and it's all on your computer, you could lose that, right? You don't want to lose it. So make sure you do backups and stuff like that. So usually the way that they get infection, 9 times out of 10, some kind of email comes in, you click on it. That has been for the longest time the #1 way that people get into your system or into other organizations' system is through email. Someone clicks on something and then it's in your network. So having a firewall doesn't prevent that. Right? A lot of people think, oh, I got a firewall. Oh, I got antivirus. Antivirus is just one of many things that you probably need to have. That's like saying you're a knight in shining armor and you say, I have a shield, but I have nothing else. Well, then your legs and your arms and your head's going to get hit, right? That's not going to. So the shield's one thing. Antivirus, yes, one thing you need to have, but you have to have all the armor, right, to protect yourself. So you want to make sure that you're doing all of that stuff. So this just goes through showing you a little bit about how the infection gets into it. They get into your systems. They look for old software. If you have old software installed on your machines, they can break into your machines because those old softwares have vulnerabilities in it that aren't fixed. So how many of you have a machine that's out of date at your house? Do you know it's out of date? Have you done an update? Okay, so here's a good question. Another question about how many. How many devices do you have in your house that are connected to the internet? Can you even count them? I tried counting them the other day and I was like, oh, I forgot about that. Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, I forgot about that. My microwave now wants to connect to the internet. And I'm like, why do you want to connect to the internet? And it's popping up on my phone and I'm like, what? I didn't do anything. I just plugged the microwave in and it's popping up on my phone. Because my phone's a Samsung, and it's a Samsung. So it says, hey, you're a Samsung, and you must be the owner of the microwave. And I'm like, anyways, so then that's the thing. If you don't, and then what if you don't update it? Somebody else comes in with their phone, and it's infected with something, and now it's in your house, and it's infected. Now, if it's not on the network, then maybe it's all by itself. I don't know if it's going to make your TV dinners all messed up or mess up your popcorn, but I don't want other viruses in my house at all. But think about it, your network routers that you have, do those things get updated on a regular basis? Well, hopefully, but if you have an old one, probably not. We just recently had a bunch of advisories go out because there was a home-based router that had vulnerabilities into it that a lot of home users use, and that threat actors from other nation states were hacking into them so they could use your router to launch attacks against other people. So it wasn't necessarily hurting you other than slowing your internet down. So if you're trying to watch Netflix, it starts, doing its little, can't buffer or whatever. So you want to watch out for out-of-date items, out-of-date software, out-of-date hardware. You want to make sure you keep them up to date. What? Well, so you know what? The funny thing, where was I at? I was at a place and I walked by and they had a digital sign. and it had a big old error message on it, right? And then I went to another place, and they had one of those, conference room little computer things there, and it had a ransomware notification on it. So you think about it, you don't think about that as being a device that's connected to the internet. But it is. It's a little computer hanging on the wall that runs, the lights in the room. We call those Internet of Things devices. They're all over the place. Drones, that's the Internet of Device things. PlayStation, Xbox, whatever, that's another device. Your TV is on the internet, right? That's another device. And if you have a microwave like mine, it's on the internet and all that other stuff. My washer and dryer wants to be online. I'm like, I don't know why you want to be online. Like, what am I going to download different load cycles for linens? I don't know. So there's all kinds of stuff. So they can also, another way that they can try and break into systems is just trying every possible password, right? And that's why 8-character passwords aren't great anymore. And the reason for that is computers keep on getting faster, faster, and faster. You've seen all the AI stuff, right? Some of it's kind of scary, but there's some really good stuff that it can do. But it takes faster and faster computers to do that. And every time we turn around, we keep on doubling the speed of computers. And that means it takes less time to break a password that's 8 characters long than it did 5 years ago. And now it's so trivial that they can break it in a very short period of time. And so that's why we're saying 8 isn't long enough anymore. That's why we're saying 15, 16-character passwords. And I hate to say that because that's a lot of passwords to remember. So one of the things that I would always recommend is like the multi-factor authentication, make your life easy. The other way that they try to get into your system is remote desktop type of connections. It's another way that they can get into your system. If someone calls you and they say they're from Microsoft or they're from this company or they're from this company and you have a problem and they want you to let them log into your system remotely, don't. Find a trusted person. Call your nephew, your grandkids, your kids, whoever that really does know about it. I know they're like, ugh. My mom calls me all the time. And she's always like, Mom, the internet's not broken. Because that's what she calls. She just calls and says the internet's broken. I'm like, the internet's not broken, Mom. It's something else. Did you try rebooting your computer? That's usually the conversation. And then sometimes it's something else, and then I have to go over there and look at it, right? But people will call and say that, hey, I'm from such and such company. I want to log into your computer, and I'm going to fix it for you. Those companies are not going to call you. They're going to want you to call them, and they're going to put you on hold for a very long time, right? So that's one of the things you got to watch out for. Don't trust anybody that's telling you that I'm here to be a good Samaritan, fix your computer, unless you know them. They probably are not. Oops, did I miss one? There's all kinds of different frauds. So one of the big things that happens is anytime something big in the news happens, people will take advantage of it. During hurricanes, especially when they're really bad or something like that, people will set up relief funds and they'll pull on your heartstrings. They will ask you to donate. They'll tell you a sob story about some kid that's, his parents are dead and he has no food and he needs money right away. And it's all a scam. In fact, they can make fake videos now with AI. They're pretty convincing, and they can make fake pictures with AI, so they can make stuff up completely. Right? So you have to be careful about that. They're going to try and tell you. So the best thing to do is if you're caring people, I can tell every one of you is a very caring person, and if there was a hurricane that hit somebody or an earthquake, you'd want to donate. So find reputable organizations and donate to them, right? There's a lot of charity vetting groups out there that will tell you what the best charities are and how much they spend their money on. Do a little bit of homework, make sure you're giving it to a good one. So you make sure that your dollars are going to the actual problem and not to a cyber criminal. Right? Because that's the worst thing is you're a giving person and you want to help that kid or whatever it is, and it's just going to go and pay for some Maserati for some rich cyber criminal in Europe somewhere or wherever else, right? So we don't want to do that. So watch out for those things. They're all over. There's job scams, work from home, make $10,000 a month for only working 5 minutes. Oh, yeah, that doesn't, look, if that was true, I would not be doing this, right? So I'm just saying. That's not going to happen. So watch out for those things. Gift card scams. Don't do any of that kind of stuff. Don't get a job where they're saying, we're going to send you money and then you're going to send the money back. Don't do it. That's money laundering. They're just trying to trick you into doing money laundering for you. Don't do that. So watch out for those types of things. Those are some of the examples of scams. Oh, there we go. COVID-19 was a big one. People will use anything. One of the ones that I thought was really interesting is, when Osama bin Laden was, when they caught him, they actually said there was a bunch of websites, and you could look it up. It was malware that if you clicked on it, it would download a virus onto your computer, but all of it was posted all over the internet that said, watch the video of it happening or something like that. So a lot of people are like, I want to watch the video, right? So they're trying to use what's in the news to entice you to click. And it's called clickbait, but that's what they're trying to do. So you want to watch out for that kind of stuff. Same type of thing with anything big that's going on right now. Elections time. Oh, I'm sure there's going to be like, watch so-and-so do X and watch so-and-so do that. They're just trying to get you to click on stuff, right? Watch out for that stuff because they're just trying to get malware on your computer. Phone-based scams, I think I've kind of already talked about that. They'll come in all different forms. I get messages all the time. And I get ones that say, hey, big boy, you, and I'm like, oh my gosh, not another one. Anyway, don't trust any of that stuff. If you don't recognize the number, just delete it. Just don't even reply to it, right? Because sometimes the malware, just by you replying to it, could possibly download the malware. Just delete it. Don't do that. Watch out for that stuff on your phone. Your phone is one of the things that you have to watch out for. Now, in this one, they're trying to show you kind of how you can look at different email addresses. You always want to look at if you're looking at an email address, you want to look for something dots, and that last dot, because there could be 5 dots. It could be, the email address could be Donald at server Y, server B, dot server X, dot something, dot hotmail.com. It could be some really long thing. You have to go all the way to the end and see what the last couple digits after the last dot is. Is it .com? So that'll tell you, is it Amazon.com? So Amazon has all kinds of different servers, and you might go to housewares.amazon.com. It's that .com at the end in the Amazon that you want to know. And you want to look at that, make sure it is Amazon.com. If it's coming from a government agency, you want to look for that .gov, right? If you get an email address from me, it's going to be Donald.Hester at whatever.gov, right? You want to make sure you have that .gov. Because that's going to tell you that it's coming from a legitimate source. Well, it's going to tell you it's coming from that legitimate source. We can't monitor everything on the internet, but we do monitor at CISA all the .gov domains, right? So we've locked them down so nobody can spoof that and pretend to be a .gov, right? So that you can trust that if you're getting something from .gov, it's coming from us. If it comes from the FBI and it comes from FBI agent 1234 at Comcast.net, it's not from the FBI. Right? So that's what you go watch out. They will come from FBI.gov, right? So you want to watch out for that. So any of the type of stuff, you also kind of look at, they're showing you real and fake ones, so you can kind of tell them apart. Sometimes, if you don't know, ask, or call Microsoft directly if you got one of these. Call them directly and ask them, or look online to verify, or have somebody else look at it and say, does this look legit? Does this look like the right, what we call address or URL? Yes?
What's the difference of fake and real? I'm trying to figure it out.
Well, notice that it says urgent action needed. Remember I told you they're asking for you to do something really quickly. And that's only a clue. You have to play Scooby-Doo, right? You have to collect all the clues and see what it's actually saying. So if you look at all of this stuff, you'll notice that there's grammatical errors, there's this weird HTTP with the wrong type of thing, and some of the stuff is not the right address for a Microsoft account, right? So you have to know it's coming from Microsoft.com, or if it's other domains of Microsoft. I'm not expecting you to remember all the domains. That's why if you don't recognize it, you don't trust it, just, like I said, ignore it. But notice this one. The first clue is that it's coming from, and here's the other thing. They can send an email and pretend like it's coming from somewhere else. And so the new email services are trying to filter that stuff out to make sure. But technology was not set up for that security, so it's going to take a while for that. So if you don't trust it, you don't recognize it, just delete it, right? And if it's something that seems like it's important, call the company directly. That's the best thing that you can do. So this one just shows you what some type of people use as far as passwords. People like to use really easy passwords. These are easy to guess. They will try all these passwords before they try every other combination. So if you have any of those on there, do you remember, what is that Mel Brooks movie? And he says, oh, that's the password to my luggage. 1, 2, 3, 4. You know? So you don't want to have that one, right? Because that's just an easy one. They're going to guess that one. So use a password manager, which I kind of already told you about. I'm out of order, I'm sorry. But you want to watch out for that. Get a password manager if you can. Report it to IC3. So if something happens to you, especially if you lose money, you want to report it. I don't know, this happened just last month, so this is hot off the presses. Did you hear about the man in Concord who got a call and thought it was from like the Secret Service or something like that? And they told him, oh, you've been hacked, you have identity theft. Why don't you transfer your money to the government and we'll protect it for you? Okay, that should be your first sign. Don't. Yeah, exactly. Well, don't. I mean, how are they going to protect it, right? No, there's something fishy there, right? And again, the fear got the person not to think, and then they just did it. And it's a sad story, because I lost quite a bit of money, right? I think all of his retirement accounts were drained. They basically got all of that stuff. And not only that, you took all the money out of your retirement, and now the real IRS is going to come and say, guess what? You owe taxes on that. Anyways, not good. Right? So you got to be careful. I don't want any of you to be a victim. I don't want anybody to be a victim of that. So you want to watch out. So report it so that we know about what happens. If you have something that's related to Social Security, you can go to the website and you can report it to them. And then they track that information. And if you've been and they've committed identity theft and they're using your Social Security number, then there's a process that you can go through to get a new Social Security number. And I know it's a huge hassle. Right? But if somebody is actually pretending to be you and has your Social Security number and is signing up for credit cards and all that stuff, and they're doing other things, I don't know how you're going to protect it, right? You can get one of those other services that can help you lock your credit report so that it'll come back and pop back and say that it's locked. You can do that yourself. You don't have to pay for a service. You can just go to the credit agencies and tell them you want to put a lock on it. They're getting a lot better with that. They're giving you more access to your credit report and giving you the ability to kind of lock it down, which means you can't go to your favorite department store and say, I want to save 10%. If you apply today, you're like, oh, okay, I'll apply, and then it's going to be like, there'll be a fraud alert or whatever, or a freeze on your credit, so it may not happen. But it's better than someone pretending to be you, correct? We have a bunch of different organizations that kind of work together to help protect for different types of fraud. Like I said, the FBI, like if you lost a little bit of money or your computer got broken into, the FBI is probably not going to come and investigate it. There's so much cybercrime right now that is for millions of dollars that they have to deal with all that kind of stuff first, right? So, and most local law enforcement we don't have the capacity to deal with all the crime, right? So it's a little bit of the Wild West out there. You got to protect yourself. And so that's why I really commend the city for having this here. They're trying to make South San Francisco cyber safe. And this is the first thing, is to get the information out to you. Now that you've heard this message, and I hope you guys all like me, right? You all like me? I'm a nice guy. I'm asking you that you join me with this, and that you tell your friends and family, and you tell them to be cyber safe. Tell them to watch out for stuff. When they start telling you a story about how they're going to come into some money in the near future, ask some questions about that and say, oh, really? Is it a Nigerian prince or something? Or, just ask the questions. Get them to think about that stuff, because we don't want them to be victims, right? We got to stop the bad guys. And so that's what I'm hoping that you will help me do. I can't do it by myself. Like I said before, we have to collaborate together. And so hopefully you will join me in doing that, and I'll open it up to questions. And did I talk too long?
Perfect. So we probably have time for a couple of questions. I will try to come around to you. If you're able to come up here, that would be great. If you're mobility challenged, I'm happy to come to you.
Question? So the question is like, how reputable are those organizations like LifeLock and all that stuff? Again, I can't speak specifically to a particular organization, but a number of those organizations are effective in protecting you and your identity, but they're not, again, they're not a bulletproof thing. I think it was in the news that one of them, CEOs of one of them, somebody had committed identity theft against them because they circumvented the system. So if the organization you sign up for locks your credit down, but another company gives somebody credit without pulling a credit report, then it still ends up showing up on your credit report that you didn't pay them, right? And shame on that company for doing that. They're going to be out the money because you're going to file it as identity theft, but that's a hassle for you to have to deal with. So they're good, but they're not 100%, right? They're not going to cover you 100%. So again, do what you can to protect yourself.
I have a question. I know that my brother told me about DuckDuckGo, where apparently if you drop in the app, when you go to internet, there's no tracking. So I did that. But my question was that if you have something that's suspicious and you block them, okay? I'm not sure whether that's being reported to somebody so that they will never come back to you a second time to get the same email.
Yeah, no, so you can report stuff like that. You can there's a, I think the address is, so the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, has an email address. Any email that you think is spam or fraudulent, you can just forward it to that email address. You just hit forward and you just send it to them. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's spam@ftc.gov. And you might have to check me on that, but if you go to their website and just look where to report spam, you can report it directly to them. I don't know how much they do with that type of information. It may not get them to go away, because what ends up happening is sometimes the server that's sending out that spam is in another country somewhere else, and it's outside of our jurisdiction. We can't stop them.
Any other questions for Don?
To protect yourself fully, I mean, is there anything you can do?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things you can do. Like I said, the basic things: get a password manager, turn on multi-factor authentication, do your backups, and keep your software and stuff up to date. If you do that, you're miles ahead, and you're not going to be an easy target. So like in your house, what do they say? Don't be an easy target. So put up cameras, even if they're fake, because the criminals don't know if they're fake or real, right? Lock your door, don't leave it unlocked. You know, you do those basic things to make your house an unattractive target for criminals, right? Same thing with your car, same thing with anything else. And so you can do what you can on the cyber side to make yourself as hard to attack as possible. Not trusting what you see. Go to your Facebook and only allow your friends to see your stuff, not the whole entire world. You know, the little things like that. Turn on the privacy stuff. Do privacy as much as you can. It's not foolproof. It doesn't mean there's a lot of ways that tech companies can try and figure out ways around that. But if you put those basic things in place, you're going to be far better than most other people. And I'm not saying I'm trying to get you to be the one guy that's running faster than the one person that the bear's chasing, right? You know, sometimes people say that. But in some instances, you just have to be as good as you possibly can, because they will hit other targets then. And it's not, and I hate to say that because I don't want them to hit any targets, but we're always going to have bad guys. So,
Other questions for Don? Yes.
Hi, this is a good slide right here with all these phone numbers and agencies. Do you have anything printed that we can take home with that?
I don't have anything here. I do have some information on the booth that I had for small businesses, and I have some information for schools. So there's some information back there that I have for that. If you go to the website, you go to the FBI's website, I highly recommend you go there because they have links to all of this stuff from there. The Federal Trade Commission, again, they have all these things. You can go to our website. If you just go to this search thing and start searching for any of the stuff, the results should come up, right? We have you're not probably going to remember it, but we have a website that's called Shields Up, and it has basic things that you can do. Same stuff I've been talking about today, it's up there. We also do, in case you guys didn't know, do you know what October is? It's not just Oktoberfest, I'm just saying. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So you will start seeing a lot of companies and organizations that are going to join us and other federal governments to promote cybersecurity awareness. So you should see more of that stuff during the month of October. I just told you now. Heads up. So you can take that information and you can, they're going to have links to all kinds of different websites where you can learn how to protect yourself. So you're going to get a bunch of it, and it should be all year round. It shouldn't just be October, because it's not like cyber criminals are like, I'm only going to do stuff in October. No, they can do stuff all year round. But you know, we have to have all these other months to remember everything else. So for October, at least think about that. It's a good time to set up a password manager, set up multi-factor authentication, just as a reminder. And then next year have another reminder and say, oh, I need to do that again. But the idea is just get as much information as you can. It's going to all be out there and easily accessible. You should be able to find it. Yes?
Hi, so my daughter's a 5th grader here. She's 10 and she goes to school here at Burberry. The question is for our kids. Is there, especially for Cybersecurity Awareness Month next month, is there things that like on the FBI has on YouTube that the kids can watch, like a quick kind of video to learn the basics? Because every student in South City here, all the kids from kinder all the way to 12 have a computer or iPad.
Oh,
now.
yeah.
So is there tips or things that checklists
Absolutely.
that we can...
There is a ton of information. On our website, we have a section just for K through 12 schools. They're part of critical infrastructure. So there's some information there that's available. The Department of Education, I believe, has some resources as well. But if you just go online and you look for cybersecurity awareness for teens and kids, there is all kinds of information. You'll find a ton of stuff. One of them that's really, I was trying to think of what the name of it is. You put me on the spot. I don't remember the URL or the name. But there's a lot of really good stuff where they have videos telling kids about everything about like cyberbullying. So look up cyberbullying. There's a lot of information about that on there to warn kids about, like, you know, what to do if the cyberbully comes to you, or you start getting this online and someone starts taunting you or something. How to respond to it, and then who to report it to, right? Cyberbullying is a really big issue. We've had suicides because of bullying online, right? If you think about it, when we were in school, back before the internet was, the bully could only get you when you were at school, right? And you just didn't walk home that way, you walked home a different way, right? Now they can just follow you anywhere you are because it's all on the internet, right? So it's a lot, technology can be used for good and it can be used for bad. And unfortunately, it sometimes gets used for bad, and that's why things like cyberbullying is one of the topics I would focus in on. There's a bunch of stuff, the National Cybersecurity Alliance, they have a website. They do the Cybersecurity Awareness Month. They kind of work with us to do that. And they have some resources for kids too. I think there's a packet or something they had on the website. Stuff like a crayon drawing type of thing that tells you something, you know, to remember to change your passwords or whatever. I forgot what the thing is particularly. But they had stuff that's made for kids.
Final question for Don. Yes.
So would you recommend us to sign up for the fraud alert services?
Yes, I would. That's one of the things. So that you know what the frauds are that are going. Some of them may not apply to you, because some of them may be more for businesses, because there's fraud that's related to businesses, like someone sending you a fake invoice and trying to get you to pay it, or sending you an email saying to change their payment information or something like that. But there's stuff some of that fraud you may sign up for, and you get some of that, you can just ignore it. But the other stuff is going to be related to what may happen to you, and so I would sign up for it. Again, like the Federal Trade Commission, FBI, both of them have news alerts that you can sign up for.
So if I may, wanted to end with a cautionary tale. It is one of the scams that you covered in your content. This happened to a colleague of mine about a year ago. So she was the victim of SIM swapping. And how she found out about it was she got a notification from her bank that $50,000 had been transferred out of her account. So what they discovered was their SIMs were not protected, and someone had switched their SIM to another phone. She did the right things. She had multi-factor authentication, but the multi-factor authentication went as a text. So if the scammer has your phone now, all those texts now go to that phone. So they were able to verify the transaction because this text went to their phone. One of the things that you've taught in your classes through regional organizations, national organizations, is that if you discover that you've been the victim of fraud and money has been transferred out of your account, if you notify your bank as soon as possible, but hopefully within 72 hours, there's a good chance you might be able to get your money back.
Yeah, it's really kind of important when you have stuff like that is to report it as soon as possible, especially if it has something to do with transferring of money, because there's a little bit of a lag. You ever notice you pay something and it doesn't book to the payment for a couple days, but it's out of your account and you're like, where the heck is it? The bank's doing their little magic and it's getting from one place to another. You can possibly, during that period of time, grab it and get it back, but the bank has to do that, right? So there's a whole process related to that, especially like if there's a wire transfer, something like that, there's a little bit of a delay in that. But yeah, there's a lot of scary stuff out there, like Rich said, there's a lot of things you gotta watch out for. But I'm trying to get you just to be basically safe and make you not an easy target. And then there's a lot to learn. Like I told you, I learn every day, right? There's a new scam that comes out every day. And so you just have to be super cautious about it. They're creative. I wish that all those cyber criminals, if they're watching out there, if they would take their innovation and put it to something good to use. Maybe we could solve something like, cure cancer or something. Let's put it to some kind of good use. And that's the sad part is it's not. It's just used to make them rich and us poor.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Please return my call at your earliest convenience. Please return my call at your earliest convenience. Please return my call at your earliest convenience. Please return my call at your earliest convenience.